Class 12, Chapter 2, Human Reproduction. Okay, as you are aware, humans are sexually reproducing and viviparous. The reproductive events in humans include formation of gametes, gametogenesis, that is sperms in males and ovums in females, transform of sperms into female genital tract, insemination, and fusion of male and female gametes, fertilization, leading to the formation of zygote. This is followed by the formation and development of blastocysts and its attachment to the uterine wall, implantation, embryonic development, gestation, and delivery of the baby, parturition. You have learned that these reproductive events occur after puberty. There are remarkable differences between the reproductive events in the male and in the female. For example, sperm formation continues even in old men, but formation of ovum ceases in women around the age of 50 years. Let us examine the male and female reproductive system in human. The male reproductive system is located in the pelvis region. It includes a pair of testes along with the accessory ducts, glands, and the external genitalia. The testes are situated outside the abdominal cavity within a pouch called a scrotum. The scrotum helps in maintaining the low temperature of the testes, 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius, lower than the normal internal body temperature, necessary for the spermatogenesis. In adults, each testis is oval in shape with a length of about 4 to 5 centimeter and width of about 2 to 3 centimeter. The testis is covered by a dense covering. Each testis has 250 compartments called testicular lobules, and each lobules contain 1 to 3 highly coiled seminiferous tubules in which sperms are produced. Each seminiferous tubule is lined on its inside by the two types of the cell called male germ cells, spermatogonia, and Sertoli cells. The male germ cells undergo meiotic division, finally leading to the sperm formation, while Sertoli cells provide nutrition to the germ cell. The regions outside the seminiferous tubules, called intestinal spaces, contains small blood vessels and intestinal cells or leading cells. Leading cells synthesize and secrete testicular hormones called androgen. Other immunological competent cells are also present. The male sex accessory ducts include rete testis, vas deferens. The testis open into the vas deferens through the rete testis. The vasa efferentia leaves the testis and open into the epididymis located along the posterior surface of each testis. The epididymis lead to the vas deferens that the ascent to the abdomen and loops over the urinary bladder. It receives a duct from the seminal vesicles and opens into the urethra as the ejaculatory duct. These ducts store and transport the sperms from the testis to the outside through the urethra, and the urethra originates from the urinary bladder and extends through the penis to its external opening called urethral meatus. The penis is the male external genitalia. It is made up of a special tissue that helps in the erection of the penis to facilitate the insemination. The enlarged end of penis, called glans penis, is covered by a loose fold of skin called foreskin. The male accessory gland include paired seminal vesicle, a prostate, and a pair bulbourethral gland. Secretion of these glands constitute the seminal plasma, which is rich in fructose, calcium, and certain enzymes. The secretion of bulbourethral glands also helps in the lubrication of the penis. The female reproductive system consists of a pair of ovaries along with a pair of oviducts, uterus, cervix, vagina, and the external genitalia located in the pelvic region. These parts of the system, along with a pair of the mammary gland, are integrated structurally and functionally to support the process of ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth, and child care. Ovaries are the primary female sex organs that produce the female gametes, ovum, and several steroid hormone ovaries hormones. The ovaries are located one on each side of the lower abdomen. Each ovary is about 2 to 4 cm in length and is connected to the pelvic wall and uterus by ligaments. Each ovary is covered by a thin epithelium which encloses in ovarian stroma. The stroma is divided into the two zones, a peripheral cortex and an inner medulla. The oviduct, fallopian tubes, uterus, and vagina constitute the female accessory ducts. Each fallopian tube is about 10 to 12 cm long and extends from the periphery to each ovary of the uterus, and the part closer to the ovary is funnel-shaped infundibulum, and the edges of the infundibulum possess finger-like projection called fimbriae, and which helps in collection of the ovum from the ovulation. The infundibulum leads to the wider parts of the oviduct called ampulla, and the last pores part of the oviduct isthmus has a narrow lumen and it joins the uterus. Uterus is single and it has also a womb. The same shape of the uterus is like an inverted pear. It is supported by ligaments attached to the pelvic wall. The uterus opens into the vagina through a narrow cervix. The cavity of the cervix is called cervical canal, which along with the vagina forms the birth canal. The walls of the uterus has three layers of the tissue: the external thin membranous perimetrium, medial thick layer of the smooth muscles myometrium, and in the inner glandular layer called endometrium that lines the uterine cavity. The endometrium undergoes cyclical changes during menstrual cycle, and the myometrium exhibit a strong contraction during the delivery of the baby. The female external genitalia includes mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen, and clitoris. Mons pubis is a cushion of fatty tissue covered by skin and pubic hair, and the labia majora are fleshy folds of the tissue which extends down from the mons pubis and surrounded the vaginal opening. The labia minora are paired folds tissue under the labia majora, and the opening of the vagina is often covered partially by a membrane called hymen, and the clitoris is a tiny finger-like structure which lies at the upper junction of the two labia majora above the urethral opening. The hymen is often torn during the first coitus intercourse. However, it can be broken by suddenly falling jolts, insertion of vaginal tampon, active participation in some sports like horse riding, cycling, etc. In some women, the hymen persists even after the coitus. In fact, the presence of the absence of hymen is not the reliable indicator of the virginity or sexual experience. Now, a functional mammary gland is characteristic of all female mammals. The mammary gland are paired structures breast that contains the glandular tissue and variable amount of fat, and the glandular tissue of each breast is divided into 50 to 20 mammary lobes containing cluster of cells called alveoli. The cells of alveoli secrete milk which is stored in the cavities lumen of the alveoli, and the alveoli opens into the mammary tubules. The tubules of each lobe joins to form a mammary duct. Several mammary ducts join to form a wider mammary ampulla which is connected to the lactiferous duct through which milk is sucked out. Now, gametogenesis. The primary sex organ, the testes in the males and ovaries in the female, produce gametes, that is sperm and ovum respectively, by the process called gametogenesis. In testes, the immature male germ cells spermatogonia produce sperm by spermatogenesis that begins at the puberty, and the spermatogonia, singular spermatogonium, present on the inside wall of the seminiferous tubules, multiply by mitotic division and increase in numbers. Each spermatogonium is diploid and contains 46 chromosomes. Some of the spermatogonia, called primary spermatocytes, periodically undergo meiosis. Primary spermatocytes complete the first meiotic division, reduction division, leading to the formation of two equal haploid cells called secondary spermatocytes, which has only 23 chromosomes each. The secondary spermatocytes undergo the second meiotic division to produce 4 equal haploid spermatids. So there is a question, what would be the number of chromosomes in the spermatids? Okay, the spermatids are transformed into the spermatozoa by the process called spermiogenesis. After the spermiogenesis, sperm heads become embedded in the Sertoli cells and are finally released from the seminiferous tubules by the process called spermiation. Spermatogenesis starts at the age of puberty due to significant increase in the secretion of gonadotropin releasing hormone GnRH. This, if you call a hypothalamic hormone, the increased level of GnRH then act at the anterior pituitary gland and stimulate secretion of two gonadotropins, LH and FSH. LH act as a leading cells and stimulates the synthesis and secretion of androgen, and androgens in turn stimulates the process of spermatogenesis. FSH acts on the Sertoli cells and stimulate secretion of some factors which help in the process of spermiogenesis. Let us now examine the structure of a sperm. It has a microscopic structure composed of a head, neck, middle piece and tail. A plasma membrane envelops the whole body of a sperm. The sperm head contains an elongated haploid nucleus, the anterior portion of which is covered by a cap-like structure called acrosome. The acrosome is filled with enzymes that help fertilization of the ovum. The middle piece possesses numerous mitochondria which produce energy for the movement of the tail to facilitate sperm motility essential for fertilization. The human male ejaculation about 200 to 300 million sperms during a coitus, of which for a normal fertility at least 60% of sperm must have normal shape and size, and at least 40% of them must show vigorous motility. Sperms released from the seminiferous tubules are transported by the accessory ducts, secretion of the epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle and prostate, and are essential for maturation and motility of sperm. The seminal plasma along with the sperm constitute the semen, and the functions of the male sex accessory ducts and glands are maintained by the testicular hormones androgen. The process of formation of a mature female gametes is called oogenesis, which is markedly different from spermatogenesis. Oogenesis is initiated during the embryonic development stage when a couple of millions of gametes, mother cells oogonia, are formed within each fetal ovary. No more oogonia are formed and added after birth. These cells start division and enter into the prophase 1 of the meiotic division and get temporarily arrested at that stage called primary oocyte. Each primary oocyte then gets surrounded by a layer of granulosa cells and is called the primary follicle. A large number of these follicles degenerate during the phase from the birth to the puberty. Therefore, at the puberty, only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are left in each ovary, and the primary follicles get surrounded by more layers of the granulosa cells and a new theca and are called secondary follicles. The secondary follicles soon transform into the tertiary follicles, which is characterized by the fluid-filled cavity called interum, and the theca layer is organized into an inner theca interna and outer theca externa. It is important to draw your attention that it is at the stage that the primary oocyte within the tertiary follicles grow in size and complete its first meiotic division. It is an unequal division resulting in the formation of a large haploid secondary oocyte and a tiny first polar body. The secondary oocyte retains bulk of the nutrients rich in the cytoplasm of the primary oocyte. Does the first there is a question. At present, we are not very certain about this. The tertiary follicles further changes into mature follicle or Graafian follicle. The secondary oocyte form new membrane called zona pellucida surrounding it. The Graafian follicle now rupture to release the secondary oocyte from the ovary by the process called ovulation. Can you identify major functions? A diagrammatic representation of spermatogenesis and oogenesis is given below. Here you can see. Now, menstrual cycle. The reproductive cycles in the female primates like monkey, apes and human beings called menstrual cycle. The first menstrual begins at the puberty and is called menarche. In human females, menstruation is repeated an average interval of 28 to 29 days, and the cycle of events starting from one menstruation to the next one is called menstrual cycle. One ovum is released, ovulation during the first middle of each menstrual cycle. The major events of the MC are shown in figure 2.9. The cycle starts with the menstrual phase, which is menstrual flow occurs and it lasts for 3 to 5 days. The menstrual flow results during the breakdown of endometrium lining of the uterus and its blood vessels, which forms liquid that comes out of through the vagina. Menstruation only occurs if released ovum is not fertilized. Lack of menstruation may be indicative of pregnancy. However, it may be also be caused due to some other underlying causes like stress, poor health, etc. The menstrual phase is followed by the Graafian follicular phase. During this phase, the primary follicles in the ovary grows to become a fully mature Graafian follicles, and simultaneously the endometrium of uterus degenerates through the proliferation. These changes in the ovary and uterus induced by the changes in the levels of the pituitary and ovarian hormones. The secretion of the gonadotropin, LH and FSH increase gradually during the follicular phase and stimulates follicular development, as well as the secretion of the estrogen by the growing follicles. Both LH and SH attack a peak level in the middle of the cycle, about 14 days. Rapid secretion of LH leading to its maximum level during the mid-cycle, and LH surge induce rupture of the Graafian follicles and thereby release of ovulation. The ovulation ovulatory phase is followed by the luteal phase, during which the remaining parts of the Graafian follicle transform as a corpus luteum. The corpus luteum secretes a large amount of progesterone, which is essential for the maintenance of endometrium. Such an endometrium is necessary for implantation of the fertilized ovum and other events of the pregnancy. During the pregnancy, all the events of the menstrual cycle stops and there is no menstruation. In the absence of fertilization, the corpus luteum degenerates, and this causes of disintegration of the endometrium leading to the menstruation, marking a new cycle. And in human beings, menstrual cycles causes around 50 years of age, that is called menopause. Cyclic menstruation is a indicator of normal reproductive phase and extends between the menarche and menopause. Fertilization and implantation. During copulation, semen is released by the penis into the vagina. Insemination, and the motile sperm swim rapidly past through the cervix, enter into the uterus, and finally reach the ampullary region of the fallopian tube. The ovum released by the ovary is also transported to the ampullary region where fertilization takes place. Fertilization can also occur if the ovum and sperm are transported simultaneously to the ampullary region. This is the reason why not all copulation lead to the fertilization and pregnancy. The process of fusion of sperm with the ovum is fertilization. During fertilization, a sperm comes in the contact with the zona pellucida layer of the ovum and induces changes in the membrane that block the entry of the additional sperm. Thus, it ensures that only one sperm can fertilize an ovum. The secretion of the acrosome help in the sperm enter into the cytoplasm of the ovum through the zona pellucida and the plasma membrane. This induces the completion of the meiotic division of the second oocyte. The second meiotic division is also unequal and result in the formation of second polar body and haploid ovum otid. Soon the haploid nucleus in the sperm that ovum fuse together to form diploid zygote. So there is a question, how many chromosomes will be in zygote? One has to remember that the sex baby has to decided at the stage itself. Let us see how. As you know, the chromosome pattern in the human female is XX and in the female XY. Therefore, the haploid gametes produced by the female have the sex chromosomes X, whereas in the female gametes sperm sex chromosomes could be either X or Y. Hence, 50% of the sperm carry X chromosomes and the 50% carry Y. After fusion of the male and female gametes, the zygote which carry either XX or XY depending on whether the sperm carrying X or Y fertilize the ovum. The zygote carrying XX would develop into female baby and XY would form a male. That is why scientifically it is correct to say that the sex of the baby determined the father and not by the mother. Mitotic division starts at the zygote, moves through the isthmus of the oviduct called cleavage towards the uterus and forms the 2, 4, 8, 16 daughter cells called blastomeres, and the embryos with 8 to 16 blastomeres is called morula, and the morula continues to divide and transform into the blastocysts as it moves further into the uterus, and blastomere in the blastocysts are arranged into an outer layer called trophoblast and an inner group of the cell attached to the trophoblast called inner cell mass, and the trophoblast layer then gets attached to the endometrium and inner cell mass get differentiated as the embryo attachment, and the uterine cells divides rapidly and covers the blastocysts, and as the result blastocyst becomes embedded in the endometrium of uterus, and this is called implantation and it leads to the pregnancy. Pregnancy and embryonic development. After implantation, finger-like projection appears on the trophoblast called chorionic villi, which are surrounded by the uterine tissue and maternal blood. The chorionic villi and the uterine tissue become integrated with each other and jointly form a structural and functional unit between the developing embryo, fetus, and maternal body called placenta. The placenta facilitates the supply of oxygen and nutrients to the embryo and also removal of carbon dioxide and excretory waste material produced by the embryo. The placenta is connected to the embryo through an umbilical cord which helps in the transport of substances to and from the embryo. Placenta also acts as endocrine tissue and produce several hormones like human chorionic gonadotropin, human placental lactogen, estrogen, progesterone, etc. In the later phase of pregnancy, a hormone called relaxin is also secreted by the ovary. Let us remember that the human chorionic gonadotropin and human placental lactogen and relaxin are produced by the woman only during pregnancy. In addition, during pregnancy, the level of other hormones like estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, prolactin, thyroxine, etc. increased several folds of the maternal blood. Increased production of these hormones is essential for the supporting the fetal growth, metabolic changes in the mother, and maintenance of the pregnancy. Immediately after the implantation, the inner cells of the mass embryonic differentiates into an outer layer called ectoderm and inner layer called endoderm. A mesoderm soon appears between the ectoderm and mesoderm, and 3 layer this gives rise to all tissue in adults, and it needs to be mentioned here that the inner cell mass contains certain cells called stem cells which have potency to give rise to all the tissue and organ. The human pregnancy lasts 9 months. How many months pregnancy? Dog, elephant, cats? Find out. In human being, after 1 month of pregnancy, the embryo's heart is formed. The first sign of growing fetus may be noticed by listening to the heart sound carefully through the stethoscope. By the end of the second month of pregnancy, the fetus develops limbs and digits. By the end of the 12 weeks, the first trimester, the most of the major organ systems are formed. For example, limbs, external genital organs, and well developed. The first movement of the fetus appearance hair on the head are usually observed during the 5th month. By the end of about 24 weeks, the body covered with the fine hair, eyelids separate, and eyelashes are formed. By the end of 9 months of the pregnancy, the fetus is fully developed and is ready for the delivery. Parturition and lactation. The average duration of human pregnancy is 9 months, which is called gestation period. Vigorous contraction of the uterus at the end of the pregnancy causes expulsion, delivery of the fetus. This process of delivery of the fetus childbirth is called parturition, and the parturition is induced by a complex neuroendocrine mechanism. The signals for parturition originates from the fully developed fetus and placenta, which induce mild uterine contraction called fetal ejection reflex. The triggers release of oxytocin from the maternal pituitary. Oxytocin acts on the uterine muscles and causes stronger uterine contraction, which in turn stimulates further secretion of oxytocin. And the stimulatory reflex between the uterine contraction and oxytocin secretion continues, resulting in a stronger and stronger contraction. This leads to the expulsion of baby out of the uterus through the birth canal, and parturition. Soon after the infant is delivered, the placenta is expelled out of the uterus. How do you think doctors injected to induce delivery? The mammary glands of the female undergo differentiation during pregnancy and start producing milk towards the end of the pregnancy by the process called lactation. This helps the mother in feeding the newborn. The milk produced during the initial few days of the lactation is called colostrum, which contains several antibodies absolutely essential to the developed resistance for newborn babies. Breastfeeding during the initial period of the infant growth is recommended by doctor for bringing up a healthy baby. So that's it. Thank you so much.